Are you feeling lost in a digital wilderness? Welcome to Lost in Cyberia. We are your guide to navigating the world of cyberspace.
So whether you're a tech enthusiast or you're looking to land your first job in InfoSec, we're here to break things down into bite-sized pieces so that you don't have to. So welcome to another episode of Lost in Cyberia. We're your hosts, Annie Mae.
And Annika?
And today we've got not one but two guests on the show today, which is very exciting.
I'm so excited.
So our first guest today is Bianca Puglisi. Bianca started out in hospitality and studied psychology. She then joined the army at 30 and had a very fulfilling career before starting a new career in the world of cybersecurity. She's been involved in managing cyber training programs that were delivered nationally to over 500 students. She's now the operations manager at Solvyr, providing advice on complex cybersecurity environments and essential uplift projects. In her spare time, she considers herself a servant to her cats.
That's right.
Yeah. And loves escaping in a good book. So welcome to the show, Bianca.
Thanks, Annie. Thanks, Annika.
Lovely to have you. And we also have our second guest today. How exciting is this? Kathy Sisson. Kathy started her career as a RAF photographer, which is very different to what she does now. She recently returned to Australia after living in New Zealand and spending some time within their government and defence sectors. Kathy has been involved in delivering numerous enterprise-wide IT security projects and is now working on a project to improve interoperability between defence domains. In her spare time, Kathy loves reading and immersing herself in virtual reality, multiplayer games with friends and family. Welcome to the show, Kathy.
Thank you very much. Lovely to be here.
Lovely to have you.
Since you both come from a defence background, and I'm quite interested in the photography, Kathy, how did you become a photographer?
That's a interesting but simple story. Left school, didn't really know what to do, and my father actually suggested, what about the Air Force? And I went, oh, that might work. So he is a mechanic. When you applied at that stage, you apply for preferences, and I think you give 3 preferences as to what you want to do. And I thought, well, Dad's a mechanic, I'll follow Dad and I'll be an aircraft mechanic or something. And before I submitted the form, he said, I don't want you to be an aircraft mechanic. I don't want you to follow me. I want you to do something else. I don't want my daughter to have dirty hands or fingernails in ground dirt and stuff like that. So he was looking after me. So yeah, I changed my second preference, which was photographer, and put that first, and then got that. And that was simple, simple as that. And spent 11 years as a photographer in the RAAF.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, and we can see you've obviously got a very big camera collection.
Yes.
So where did that actually take you? I assume you probably travelled a lot for...
Funnily enough, no. So, at the time, and I know the Air Force has changed, I don't know what they do now, but at the time, they train you. So it's a 9-month photo course and you do everything. Chemistry, physics, maths. They teach you how to take photos, the basic, simple, rule of thirds, lighting, everything. Black and white, colour and slide. And then they send you out into the wide world of the Air Force and you take everything from groups, graduations, autopsies, passports, parades, historical photos.
Just like slid it in. Congratulations, parades, autopsies. Yeah.
Every time I list stuff, people just focus on that one word. So yeah. So I think I got travelled around Australia because obviously the Air Force does exercises around Australia. But the one good trip I did go to was with the F-111s. I'm showing my age. When we went to New Zealand for an exercise. So I travelled with them because at the time it was reconnaissance. They had a reconnaissance camera package in them, so I was doing a lot of that. So yeah, so it was good. It was good, and then it wasn't, and I left.
11 years is a very good time to really become a good photographer.
You think so?
Okay, yeah. Well, yeah. Do you think?
I think by the time I left, the passion had gone. And then I probably made it worse by leaving, and because I moved to New Zealand and I did weddings and stuff. So I think that kind of made it worse because weddings can be quite high stress. You're very busy. You're talking all the time. And then I stopped, and now pretty much the only photo, and I did groups, family weddings and friends' family photos and stuff like that. And the novelty wore off. And now I pretty much just do my holiday photos. I go on holiday, I take photos. So a lot of the photos you see around my house at the moment are photos that I've taken.
Oh,
Yeah, I
very
thought to
cool.
ask you because, and you probably made them, the whole canvas yourself as well. And
No, well, I cheated on that. So I took the photo, but I ended up going through a company to get those mounted
Yeah.
on the canvas.
Nice.
But so I do like photography. I've got a lot of cameras, as you can see, but I don't use any of those. I use the ones actually that are hidden. So, and the phone I've got at the moment's got quite a good camera on it. So I used to be very traditional, and the only good camera was a camera. The phones were all crap. I refused to use the camera on the phone, but now the cameras are starting to be quite good. So now I'm actually, gradually letting go, relaxing, and making that transition into using the camera on the phone.
You accepted it.
Yes. Yeah.
Good for you.
Just let it go.
Yeah, very cool. And Bianca, so I want to talk a little bit about your career as well. So you mentioned you worked in hospitality, you mentioned you joined the army at 30, which from my understanding, not that I've ever been in the military, but I know that that's considered quite old, which
Thanks,
is
anyway.
kind of... No, this was from talking to someone at work, and I remember he mentioned that he joined when he was 26 or something, and he goes, I was quite old. And I was like, what do you mean? I was like, 26 is really young. And he goes, not in the army. So I guess, do you want to talk a little bit about your experience working in hospitality to military to, I guess, what you do now?
Yeah. So, most of my career before now was in hospitality. I managed a few venues up in Cairns. So that was a lot of
That must have
fun.
been quite an experience.
Yeah, well, especially during cyclones.
Oh.
Because, the venue I worked at was the only one with a generator. So we stayed operational and, people have addictions and they need to feed them. So we were busy during those periods. But anyway, it was a really great experience. And while I was working in hospitality, I was studying psychology full time as well. And I was coming to the end of the degree and I thought, what am I going to do? I don't want to keep going into hospitality. It was fun and sometimes I miss it. But I sort of wanted to experience a 9-to-5 style job, which was a really hard transition, by the way. And, I was looking at jobs to do. I didn't do my honours in psychology. I didn't want to go down the clinical psych path. I've got enough of my own problems to deal with. I fully admire psychologists, by the way. Yeah, so, I was doing research on what can I do, and I came across, analytical type jobs with a few agencies, and I put applications in, and Army came back first. So, joined the Army at the ripe old age of 30, turned 31 while I was at Kapuka. And, so I was nicknamed Mum and Pugs while I was there. And I wasn't the eldest, I'll just point that out. I was, in the top
Percentile.
percentile for being the eldest. But it was a lot of fun. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was probably the highlight of my career besides the deployments and stuff.
So what was your role in because I don't really understand how the military works that well.
Yeah.
So what did you actually do there?
So I joined as an OR, which is other ranks, and then you've got officers. My highest rank was corporal while I was in. I did analytical work that took me to quite a few places. I did a deployment to Kuwait, which was a lot of fun, and did a lot of trips around the South Pacific as well, doing debriefing activities and providing assessments and stuff to decision makers to help inform, the operations and missions that they were working on. So I did my first posting in Brisbane, where I did a lot of my trips. I did training as well. I delivered a lot of training while I was there because that's part of your development as a soldier, to be able to mentor the younger soldiers coming in. And then I got posted down here, and my path went in a different way while I was here, and I decided to part ways with the Army and move over to the private sector, where I ended up doing more training, and now at Solvyr doing cybersecurity stuff, which is really exciting.
Yeah, cool.
So
you actually ended up travelling more than Kathy, even though Kathy was a photographer.
Yeah,
I
was probably really lucky. I'm really fortunate in my Army career because I finished training and then did my specialist training and then deployed for 6 months, came back, did my sub 4, so subject 4 to get your corporal rank. So I did that training, and then I actually got to deploy to America and did a joint activity with the Americans, Canadians. I think we had Kiwis there as well, and it was in Washington, and the base where we stayed didn't have hot water, and it was in winter. It was freezing.
Oh my God.
So that was a very fun experience, washing your hair like that.
Your hair's like frozen.
It was so cold. And the showers didn't have doors either, so that was fun as well. So, you experience a lot of things in the defence world.
Yeah.
And then I came back from that and then went on heaps of trips to the South Pacific and went to like Tonga, Tuvalu, which is probably, I think it's like the smallest island, and it's slowly getting consumed by the ocean. Where else? Samoa, I think, Vanuatu. Like I went to quite a few places, so I've seen a lot of things, and it took me to a lot of places. It was great. Flown in helicopters and kicked things out of helicopters as well, which is fun.
What did you kick out of the helicopter?
Pamphlets.
Oh,
yeah. It's part of a training activity, and I was chosen to kick it out. So I got to stay on the edge of the aircraft and kick it out. It was good fun. And I flew RAF Air, which is not comfortable. But I don't know if you got to fly RAF Air.
Yeah. So the same thing. Travel around.
Yeah.
I've got to go on aircraft, jet aircrafts and transport and choppers and stuff. I do remember one case. They had me harnessed to the very back of the chopper, and I was sitting there with my legs dangling over, taking photos down at the ground. But one of the smart-ass guys had actually ravelled up my tether, and then when I leaned forward, he'd let it go. So I kind of... It was only about a foot. It wasn't all that far, but it gave me a massive heart attack. And it was... it frightened the hell out of me. It was kind of funny, but it kind of wasn't. So, the same thing, sitting on the back of the chopper.
Yeah. Oh, my God. I would have been terrified.
Yeah. So, I was quite young then too, so it was like, take the piss out of the young photographer. So, it was harmless and, it's okay, but it was, memorable.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think, Kathy, as well, with yourself, how did you go from being a photographer and then being a wedding photographer as well to what you do now?
So when I left the Air Force, I followed a guy and I moved to New Zealand, did wedding photography there while I was finishing off my undergrad, and then I fell into a role with one of the New Zealand government intelligence agencies there, and stayed there for about 11 years as well. And during that time had moved throughout the agency doing different roles. And the last role I had was project manager, IT project manager. And then I thought, this is for me. This is what I'm sticking with. So since then, I then moved from there into Defence, actually Ministry of Defence over there, which I think is your Department of Defence here, same. And then into their Defence Force doing crypto stuff, so cyber and crypto. And then COVID hit. And then I thought, okay, it's probably time to come back to Australia and move back to Australia in a nutshell. And during the time while I was in New Zealand, I did support a couple of trips to Afghanistan, supporting the New Zealand Defence Force. So it was good, also a varied career. And
When you say crypto, do you mean cryptocurrency or cryptography?
Cryptography.
Okay. So
I was also going to say we should probably clarify that just in case some of the listeners think that you're talking about crypto like Bitcoin.
No. Start investing in crypto.
For the New Zealand government.
Defence Force.
Guys, you've got to invest. So, in terms of and I guess because the reason why this kind of topic of project management came up was because we had a listener message us saying that they currently work as a project manager but want to move more into the cybersecurity space. If either one or both of you want to talk about what, is there actually really much in terms of skill set, in terms of working in ICT project management, what skills as well do you think are needed to work as a good project manager as well? And from your experience, is there any transition phase from moving from ICT to cyber, or are they kind of one and the same?
So, quick summary, when I first became a project manager, I didn't have a bloody clue what I was doing. I was very junior. Every time somebody said I had to do something, I hadn't got a clue what they were talking about, and it comes with time. So if you're starting from scratch, don't be afraid to actually not have a clue what you're doing. It's perfectly normal. And there are two schools of thought on this. My thought pattern is cyber and ICT go hand in hand. They are, you can't have one without the other. And you often find some people go, no, they're separate fields. You can't do one. If you can do one, you can't do the other one. I call BS. So if you're already an ICT project manager, there is no reason why you can't be a cyber project manager. You might just need to refine some skills, because obviously cyber is risk focused. It's protecting data and it's very focused on that. So I would suggest some small courses to do just to refresh your memory or just to expand your skill set a little bit. But in my opinion, there is no difference between the two. If you can do one, you should be able to easily do the other, just with a couple of tweaks. The main thing with project manager is you need to understand the subject matter experts when they talk to you. And if you don't, which is what I made the mistake of when I first started, which is why I ended up doing a diploma in systems tech, is that when I first became the project manager, the guys would talk to me about the issues, and the conversation was 3 times as long as it needed to be, because not only would they have to explain the problem, but they'd have to explain how they got to the problem and how they were going to fix it. So the idiot's guide essentially is what I was getting. It's just, and now that after I did the diploma, it was like a light bulb moment. So there's a problem, great. I actually understand how you got to that problem. Let's look at how you fix it. So yeah, you need to understand the subject matter experts because it reduces time and frustration, but you really, really need to develop communication listening skills to talk to stakeholder as well, because you are the middleman between the subject matter experts who sometimes do not know how to talk to stakeholders, and you do, especially to explain all the project management side of the house.
Yeah, I agree with you with the ICT and cyber thing. Like they go hand in hand, right? You can't have one without the other. And I know some people are just like adamant that they're fully separate. I suppose my sort of thoughts on like when I got into the project management stuff, I just kind of fell into it, doing like the training programs, because we had like staff changeovers and stuff like that. And I like being really organised. And I'm a bit of a busybody when it comes to these things. I want to know everything. What are you doing? How long is it going to take? Why are you doing that? I want it due by this time. The skills with being a project manager, you have to think of the bigger picture.
If my mum's listening to this, she's going to say, why didn't I say that? Because that's exactly what it is. Like, well, you're slightly OCD and you're bossy and you're managing. You two must be great friends.
I have been told I'm a little bit OCD, which, not a bad thing. I don't get fixated on things, but I think with IT or cyber projects, you have to be a bit OCD because it's such a fast evolving world. And you've got to try and stay on top of everything. Things change all the time. New attacks are happening. You've got to adapt quickly to manage risk and stuff like that. So you have to be on the ball all the time. And for people, I think, moving into this space, I don't have any formal training in cyber or IT or anything like that. I've just spent a lot of time Googling things, asking people questions as well. I reach out to people and I'm like, I've got a question about this. Do you think you can talk me through it? Because I just don't understand. Yeah. And it's okay not to understand. I'm a strong believer that we're always learning. You're forever learning.
For sure. And it's much better to ask than to pretend you know and then for someone to figure out a while later that you didn't know the whole time what they were talking about.
Exactly. And I don't know, what project management work is she in now, your listener? Or are they in?
I think ICT.
Yeah. ICT, yeah. See, I would argue they've already got all the skills.
Yeah, that's what we kind of said.
That's what we thought, I guess we work, because neither of us work in project management, why we wanted to actually ask people who do work in that space, because I was like, maybe there's something I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I did the Prince 2 training. I've done the foundation. I haven't done my practitioner test yet. But I'm sure I'll get there and do it. I found it, and it was delivered online. It was really overwhelming. I don't know if you've done the Prince 2.
It was awful. I did the Prince 2. I've never been so stressed in my life, and I did the practitioner one. It was in a week.
Yeah.
Was it a week?
Yes.
Oh, that was awful.
Sorry, to explain to our audience as well what this is.
The Prince 2.
Yeah, and me.
Go ahead.
I have heard of it, but I don't know what it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Prince 2 is actually an acronym, and I think it was developed in the UK.
Of course,
it's
an acronym.
And I can't remember the acronym is for all the details, but it's all theory based essentially, and there's a foundation course which is only about 3 days, and there's an exam at the end of that, and there's a practitioner's course which is about 5 days with an exam at the end of that. And they recommend that if you're a project manager, you do the practitioner's course. If you're a business analyst or a project coordinator or something, you might only need the foundations course. But I found it awful because but I probably found it worse because I did it before I became a project manager. So all the terminology was new. I didn't have a clue what was going on or why they were doing it. So that made it harder for me. But if you're a project manager and you're in the field already or you have some idea, it might be easier. But it's all theory-based. So it's a methodology as to how you should run a project. From timeline to start, the gates and all the other bits and pieces that they do, right to the end. But there's a lot of information. But it's a good starting course because it's only a week long. Just be prepared to actually be slightly stressed.
It's confusing, I think. The way it was taught to me, it was just, and it's not a reflection on the trainer or anything. It's just there's a lot of pieces that fit in with other things and like terminology, or like you're doing a business case. Oh, what feeds the business case, and what are the considerations, and like all these. Yeah. It's just, it was a lot to take in.
There is a lot. There's a lot of information.
And I think that's why I haven't done my practitioner course yet, because it's a lot.
But it's a good course. If you're a project manager, it's a good starting course to get into. Is
it something that would look good on a resume if you were looking to break into the space?
Yeah, and that's the only thing I've got. So I've got systems tech and a couple of other things. But for the project manager side of the house, pretty much the one I use is the diploma in systems tech and the Prince 2 course, and then experience. And that's pretty much what got me in.
Yeah. I think my other thing, and for your listener, would be they want to move into cyber. Have a look at jobs that are asking for cyber project managers, see what they're asking for. Sometimes you have to work backwards in these things, because there's Prince 2, then there's also Prince 2 Agile methodology, which a lot of contracts ask for or job descriptions ask for, and then PMP. Yeah. I don't remember what that stands for.
Project management
planner, maybe? I could be making it. But that's another.
I should know this, and I can't remember.
Sorry,
it's okay. We can look it up later.
Should have done my research.
Should put it in the show notes.
Because some places ask for that as well, and then just generally understanding the basics of cyber, I think, are a good start.
I think I really connected with what you said about not understanding, the people, the subject matter experts, when they talk to you. And I think from my perspective, and I have only been officially in cyber for not such a long time, just maybe under a year, but working in the tech world for like 3 or 4 years now. Because what's really helping me is the fact that I am studying while I am working. Yeah. And combining those together really helps me connect a lot of the things that I don't know. And when you were saying this, I was like, this was me essentially. But then sometimes I would have maybe something from uni that would really help me, or something that I would try to like go and then Google and like find out by myself. I found ChatGPT to be really helpful in explaining a lot of those really complicated matters in like really simple words, which is another thing you said. And then you need to be able to communicate that really complex information that you get from your subject matter experts that for some reason don't want to simplify it for you, which is another thing. Yeah, that was like my first job in tech, right? I was like, I don't understand anything you just said in this sentence.
I know you're speaking English, but I can't translate. Yeah. The other good thing about it is when you study and you work in that industry, every time what I found when I was studying is that if I didn't have a clue what they were talking about when I was studying, I'd just go and talk to one of the subject matter experts and say, what is this in English, please?
I think the other skill you need when handling or dealing with these techie people is that some of these people don't necessarily have good people skills. So you need to adapt your way of communicating with them to get what you need out of them. Because not everybody is going to present the information the way you're going to consume it. So you have to try and shape them to deliver the information in a way that you understand. And, often I'll be like, I have no idea what you're saying. Can you draw me a picture? And that will help.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point. The visual diagram of this connects to everything else.
I need visual diagrams for a lot of things. I need to see it in my head. If I don't see it in my head. Like I sometimes could ask a very simple question as in, sorry, what does this do? Because like people forget the basics, and, or like what's the purpose of this?
Because the subject matter experts obviously think you know more. They start halfway through the conversation and
Yes.
go, I'm missing a lot of information at the
Yeah.
background. That base level, I need you to start right from the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they just live and breathe it, so
Yes.
they
Yeah.
forget where they started.
Yes. But I find in my years of experience with project management working with IT guys, they often feel, or they are justifiably so, underappreciated. The only time people pay attention to them if something breaks,
Yeah.
and then they get yelled at.
Yeah.
So I am very, very conscious of always thanking them. Box of chocolates, home baking. I always, make a point of
Yeah.
appreciating them and physically appreciating them with, like I said, chocolate or something like that, because obviously we can't bring wine into work, and it's a bad look.
Yeah.
But I haven't usually had problems with them because they understand that you appreciate them and you're asking them to do something because you've been told to and it is part of their job. They're not. Yeah.
But you'll often speak to those subject matter experts, and like you said, they've been underappreciated. I've found a lot of the time initially they'll be kind of put a bit of a wall up because they think that you're also coming to accuse them of something, and you're like, no, I'm actually here to try and make your life easier, or I'm trying to understand what the problems are to help you with whatever the project is. And then I think, once you actually start to establish a bit of a rapport with them, and then they start realising that you're not there to just be annoying or, give them more work.
Yeah.
And then you actually are, you actually genuinely are trying to understand what the issues are. And I find most of the time they'll start being like, no one listens to me here. It's always that kind of and it's usually like the IT dude, who's been working there year after year and it's kind of been forgotten about. And then when something goes wrong, they're like, hey, why is this broken? What did you do?
Yep.
And, it's very accusatory. So, I think, definitely building rapport with those people and actually letting them know that you're not there to...
Goes a long way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I work obviously in cyber ops, so I work with a lot of IT dudes turned cyber.
Yeah.
And so it's very interesting to see, I think, the younger generation of cybersecurity people that either come from grad programs that actually studied cyber or computer science, or like myself and my other colleague that swapped careers and, like yourself as well. Everyone here actually. Yes, and swapped careers. And then and the difference between our approaches.
Yeah.
And that stakeholder communication and that empathy towards people as well.
Yeah.
Because the thing with IT people, if they were neglected, if they were not thanked enough, they were always accused of that. And when they're expecting this behavior from people, they also kind of project that behavior onto other people. It's like, why did you break it? Now I have to fix it, right? And we talk sometimes about victim blaming in cybersecurity, and our biggest objectives is to try and minimize that because we want to have empathy towards everyone in cybersecurity and IT world. So I think it's a very good thing you're doing, being very empathetic towards the IT dude, towards the SME as well, and for all of the hard work that they do, and they do know the system.
Yeah, and often it's actually not their fault. Because your system is only as secure as the idiot behind the computer that's using it at the other end. Sorry, because I'm also an idiot, so I also use a computer. So that is a general term. It's not meant for anybody in particular. Your system's only as secure as the person using it. So if they decide to plug a USB stick that they found off the street in the computer, which has happened before, often as not the IT subject matter expert is blamed for that because apparently the system wasn't secure enough. And it's like, well, I'm sorry, but I can only do so much to secure the system. I can't account for idiots.
It's like with how yesterday there was the announcement of the superannuation fund attack, and I saw all these people commenting on it being who obviously don't work in tech, and commenting on it being, oh, well, it'd be really great if I could log into my account and see if, my funds are still there. And it's like, well, there's actually probably a good reason why they're not letting anyone log into their account right now. Because if there is an attack happening, why would they continue letting people log into their accounts?
Yeah.
People always want to find someone to blame. Yeah. They never want to be the one held accountable, right? They always want to try and put the blame onto someone else. And I think, especially when it comes to IT things, it's always like the exec goes, oh, yeah, well, who did this? Let's put the blame on that random person who works in this small department, rather than actually taking account for what is essentially, I guess, somewhat their responsibility to be accountable for that.
And that's right. As a project manager, also I get the blame for it. So I have to be very careful not to actually roll that downhill.
Yeah.
Well, and part of the project management piece is doing your risk management as well. So you'll have like your risk management table, tracking sheet, assessment,
register,
whatever. Yeah, the register. That's it.
Risk register, and conveying that to the stakeholders to say, hey, these are your risks. Do you understand them? And then getting buy-in and mitigation and everything else, all the bits and pieces to go with that. But your project manager is usually the first port of call if something goes wrong with the schedule, if they're over budget and everything else. And you've got to be careful as to how you treat the people that are going to help you fix the problem, because I was always taught when I first started in the project management world, if you can get a project done on time and under budget or on budget, but you were a bit of a shit throughout the whole process, but your stakeholders think you're awesome because you've done this, the IT people, subject matter experts, will never ever work with you again. And once they don't work with you, they will tell other people. So it will gradually filter around to actually go, this person's really different. This project manager is awful to work with. If she's coming your way or he's coming your way, avoid them at all costs. So, there's got to be a compromise.
That's something I want to actually sorry, you go.
I was just going to say it costs nothing to be kind.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I've worked with a few really terrible project managers. So what I wanted to, I'm interested to know what makes a good project manager, because if I'm being completely honest, most project managers I've worked with have been pretty terrible.
So what's made them terrible?
Great question.
Great question. So many things.
What was terrible about them? And then maybe we can provide some insight.
Yeah, like in my experience, lack of understanding of what I'm doing, lack of understanding on timelines, constantly coming to you being like, hey, where's this? When I said, well, in the meeting we discussed I wouldn't have this done until next week, so you can't just change the due date mid-week and expect me to just drop everything else I'm doing when I'm on 3 other projects. Yeah, lack of understanding of what each individual person in the team is actually working on. I think when you were saying before, like, you really need to speak to the subject matter experts to understand what their role is. And I think that's definitely a big one. They just don't understand. And they don't try to understand. So again, it's like the lack of communication, lack of listening. And then also I think just a few people were just not very great in terms of their general personality. Which obviously that's a different issue in itself.
Yeah.
I think, like you said, like if you're a project manager, right, you're usually the first port of call when someone goes to say, hey, how's this tracking? I've had a few project managers that have tried to put that blame onto other people. And then and then, like you said, it's like, well, I don't want to work with this person ever again. And I've had to go to a manager in the past and be like, I'm not working for this guy because he's bloody doing my head in. He's not my manager. You're my manager. He just happens to be the project manager on this project.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of different things that has depended on what type of work I've been doing as well. But they seem to be like the common trends. Yeah.
I'll say something, then I'll probably get you to jump in because Kathy's more formally trained in project management than I am. Well, you've got a lot more like experience than I would say. I'm more of a casual project manager, I guess. So like in project management, there's a lot of stages, especially in that early piece when you're starting to build the project. I'll get to your point about people not understanding what someone needs to do, like the project manager. So I would say like really early in that project management piece, you have to understand who is going to be involved to deliver the project and then understand what their subject matter expertise is. And if you don't understand that piece and you're just randomly going to people saying, hey, where's this? Why isn't it ready yet? And it's because they don't understand the job you're trying to do or the complexities involved in it, I think that's where a project manager would fail. So you really need to take the time, build that rapport early on. Like even before you do your timeline planning, you have to consider who's involved, what are the risks involved, how am I going to mitigate those risks, how long is it going to take someone to do this, and do I need to add extra time in case something goes wrong? Like you have to factor all of that stuff in. And it is really tricky. If you notice risks becoming an actual problem, you have to tackle it head on and tell your stakeholders straight away and say, hey, we've highlighted this issue. We tried to mitigate that risk, but it's become an issue now. And this is what we're going to do moving forward. We have to shuffle a few things around. If you see a problem, get a solution for it. Yeah. I think is a really big thing as well. Just don't always come to someone with problems.
Yeah, agreed.
So,
and to add to that,
yeah,
that's exactly right. and often is not where projects can fail, is right from the very start with the scope. So
Yeah.
the scope
Yeah,
of the
scope's a big
project
one.
wasn't actually done properly. So they get halfway through the scope and we've got a whole network that needs to be designed, and they get halfway through designing it and they realise they forgot to add printers in.
Yeah.
So then things go pear-shaped really quickly, and then everybody blames everybody else, and it gradually filters down. And so the scope is a massive, it needs to be narrowed down to exactly what you want. If you get the scope right, there often is not, it's easier to do the project, but I've never been on a project with a really good scope, because often it's not, the stakeholders will make them vague.
Yeah.
So there's room for additions, or there's room for improvements, or there's room for something, and then because it's vague, projects assume it's this. So the agile way of working is quite good, because you're constantly checking with stakeholders. I tend to use a mishmash of whatever works on that project with that company at that time.
Yeah.
But you're right. Project managers will often make the mistake of trying to make the schedule, the budget, and everything else look good to the stakeholders. So if you're working with a project manager, and I think I did this in my early days, I don't think I do it now, but I'm not 100% sure. If you don't understand what your subject matter experts are saying and you need to listen, you're right, listen to them saying, if I do this, it's going to take me 3 months, full-time 3 months, or it's going to take 5 of us to do it in a month. The project manager needs to understand the why of that, as well as what you've just said.
Yeah.
And then they can translate that to the stakeholder and say, you have a choice. Here's your risk. It's going to take 3 months to do this. If you decide one person's going to do it in a month, the risk is this, this, and this. If you accept that, sign here, please. But yeah, you're right. The project manager, and sometimes they will underestimate or how long it's going to take. So if you say it's going to take a month, they'll say, well, if I push them, they might be able to do it in 3 weeks. Yeah. And then, because everything works in IT perfectly all the time. So it never is done in 3 weeks. It's always, it's going to be a month. So that means technically it's probably going to be 6 weeks.
Do you know what? So I've worked with a cyber person before, and anyway, you've met him. He gets very fixated on things, and it's really hard to retask him sometimes, because he has to fix that thing first, and it has to be perfect.
Yes, and that's
it's not going to be perfect all the time, and sometimes you need to try and get your SMEs to move on from certain things as well, and it's really hard. But I've gone up to him before and been like, how long is this going to take you to do? Oh, I don't know. And I'm like, roughly? I've got no idea. And I'm like, okay.
You're like, you're gonna have to give me some kind of rough estimate.
Less than 10 years, more than a week.
And that's it. You've got to get an estimate out of it.
You have to get an estimate.
And the problem is they chase the shiny object down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And it's understandable. You know, they're in that world. And they've got to develop this. But as part of that, there's whatever this is, and they go, oh, that's interesting, and they go down the rabbit hole, and they've got to figure out how to bring them back up and encourage them to do what they're supposed to be doing.
You got to get them back on task.
Back on task. And sometimes that is definitely a communication, a listening, and sometimes bribery is required.
And I think, like, not the bribery skill, but the skill of understanding.
Disclaimer.
Bribery optional.
Bribery optional.
I don't mean bribery as in money. I mean like chocolate. And
I know
bribery. But just that skill as a project manager, keeping people focused, keeping them on task, in scope. If you've got a good scope out, is a really good skill to have. Whether you're in IT or cyber, project management, like all those skills are transferable. You've got more skills than you think you do. It's just about having the knowledge on particular things in cyber. And I would say cyber project management can be really challenging because there's so many different fields, so many different areas, and we can't know it all. That's why it pays to be inquisitive, I think, and do your own research in the background. Because, not everyone's going to have time to explain something to you for like an hour. They've got their own stuff to do. Write it down, put it in your notebook, go home, research it. And if you've got some more questions, go back to that person and go, hey, did some research, but I don't understand X, Y, and Z. Do you think you can help me out? Go buy them a coffee.
Yeah.
Bribe them with whatever.
Bribe them,
There you go,
bribe them with coffee.
Same.
But I think it's really important to be like use that initiative.
Yeah.
And take it on yourself to become knowledgeable in certain areas if you don't understand.
Yeah.
I feel like in general, I think when you transition to an IT career or a cyber career or something like that, especially I think because we have a gender gap in IT as well and in cyber, I feel like we've taken a lot on ourselves to the responsibility to educate ourselves, to make sure that we get to that certain level of understanding. We don't expect people to explain it to us and to give it to us in a golden platter.
That's right.
And I can definitely see the difference between that approach and some of the people that I work with, where it's like, well, if I don't understand it, that means that you need to explain it to me.
Yeah.
And it's a very different approach. And I do believe absolutely that it pays to be inquisitive.
Yep.
And I really like what you said around take it down, go do your own research. Because they don't have the whole day to sit with you and explain it to you.
That's right.
Yes, and I think that's like, I don't have as much experience, I think, with bad project managers, but my only thing would be that's I don't have 3 hours a day to sit with you and explain to you what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, even though I can do it in a way that you can understand that, but I guess that's not necessarily what is going on.
No, it's not ideal. It's a waste of your time. It's a waste of everybody else's.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what I'm hearing as well is that I think when I first kind of heard about project managers, I was like, okay, so they don't necessarily need to know a lot of things. And now that I'm hearing this, it will pay to have life experience.
Oh,
You're having
absolutely.
people skills.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
people
think.
skills.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's the
people
biggest
skills.
one.
A bit of life experience. People skills are an essential. People skills, life experience, and a little bit of IT knowledge.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
we're just talking base level, so you can understand roughly what's going on.
And you need to know what questions to ask as well,
Yes.
I think.
Yeah, which comes from that kind of,
Yeah.
When I say life experience, I mean someone who, we talk about travel, for instance, know how to travel, know how to do things.
Yeah.
I think as well, people that transition into different careers or move a lot.
Yeah.
You kind of have to, and I think for both of you kind of moved a lot, and that teaches you to be more agile. It teaches you to let things go.
That's
Which is very important.
It's hard to tell other people to do that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think from my hospitality days, managing people in hospitality, dealing with drunk people.
Yeah,
I've
dealing
learned-
with difficult customers.
Right, I've learned a lot of different ways to try and communicate with people, de-escalate, and I've also I've had to be agile because things change quite quickly in hospitality. Things will break and go down, customers get upset, you get yelled at, and you're like, oh, okay, whatever. But like all those skills have been transferable to every job I've had.
Yeah. Talk about risk management when you're managing properties, because I worked in hotels for 7 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I absolutely understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, it can just
Yes.
change.
Yeah. I feel for me it was such an easy transition to security and cybersecurity because I always think risk. I always think, okay, what is going to happen now? Like if this building collapses, where is the exit? It's like ingrained in me. And then I think that's really made me go into cyber and go into security, because we also talked about the separation of IT and cyber. And somebody says, and I think you saw me squirm a few times when people are like, oh, it's not connected. They're separate things. No.
One doesn't exist without the other.
So it's all completely interconnected now. And that's why you do need to know a little bit of that IT. And that's where life experience is so important.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's all together. You need to be a whole person.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be really good.
Yeah, because it allows you to pivot when things go pear-shaped.
Yep.
It allows you to communicate with people, understand there's different personalities that are not the same as yours, and how to deal with...
That's right. You have to adapt to them.
Yeah, how to deal with those personalities that are different to yours, and how to listen, because listen is a really... I think people do a lot of communicating, but they don't often do a lot of listening.
Listening, yeah.
Or they listen, and I've been guilty of this, they listen and somebody gets halfway through a conversation, all you're doing is thinking, when they're finished, I'm going to say this, this, and this.
Yeah.
So therefore, you haven't really listened to them. You're just thinking of what you're going to talk about.
Yeah.
So, it needs to be very a two-way thing.
Yeah, the whole risk thing, I think, is from hospo, like you were saying, with de-escalating situations is so important, because I've worked... it's a bit of a tangent, but when I lived in Melbourne, I was working at the Eagle Bar at La Trobe University, and we were working a uni bar night, so a lot of drunk 20-year-olds.
Nice.
So all doing the bloody Eagle Rock. And we had a situation where the sewage started coming up into the bar, like just suddenly out of nowhere.
No.
So we were like, shit, we gotta shut the bar down. And we had security guards at the venue, right? But they were completely useless. You know, clearly hired from some third party company.
Yep.
You know, some guy that's walked in off the street and said he wants a job. And so my manager goes, guys, we need to shut the bar down, like ASAP. This is a health risk.
Again.
yeah, literally. So anyway, my manager went to the security guard. She said, you need to get everyone out of this venue right now.
Yeah.
And we turned around, and then so we obviously started shutting the shutters on the bar, and people obviously they weren't happy because you know there's a line of like 10 deep people waiting for a drink, and the security guards did nothing. Literally, like my manager said, "Did you go to the men's bathroom and get them out of the bathroom?" He goes, "No joke, he was crying." And he goes, "Oh,
The security guard.
The security guard."
Wow.
He goes, "They were being mean to me." And my manager, who's like this pint-sized woman, she's like, let me deal with it. And just like walked in and starts like tell like guys who are like literally peeing, being like, you need to get out of here like right now. And then me and another girl had to tell, like, we're literally moving people away from the bar, like physically telling them to leave because the security guards weren't doing anything.
Oh my goodness.
And it just, like you said, it's just when you have to deal with those situations, you're like, this is not only a risk to us, but this is a risk to everyone in this venue.
Yeah.
Like, there's literally sewage coming out of the ground.
That was a great tangent because you made me think of something else, right? The security guard comes out crying, oh, they're being mean to me.
Yeah.
You're going to get yelled at in this industry, probably.
You
know?
will.
I can't even count how many times I've been yelled at by a chef.
But
Or a customer.
You know, and in this industry, people like they're going to get stressed. They're going to yell at you. They're going to blame you for something.
Yep. If you're
Don't
subject matter
take
expert,
it personally.
No.
Project managers, project coordinators, subject matter experts, you are going to get in trouble or yelled at for something.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's like you got to have a bit of resilience, right?
Oh,
Just
that
because
builds
someone's
you so
yelling
well.
at you, you don't have to cry. You know, maybe you're having a bad day, so that's why you're
Or
crying.
if you do cry, go into the bathroom and do it yourself.
I just think, you need to have some thick skin. You've got to be resilient,
Yes.
especially when you're the project manager, because you're going to have tough conversations as well.
Yeah.
Hopefully not telling anyone to get out of the bathroom, but, you're going to have to say, because, you're going to have to deal with performance issues from people. So you have to have difficult conversations and, you need a bit of resilience and grit about you as well, I think, as a project manager.
You do, because you've got the difficult conversations with subject matter experts who are going down rabbit holes or just don't want to do this particular work.
Yeah.
You've also got difficult conversations with stakeholders, and they could be,
They can be really
level.
tricky.
Yeah, and they've got their own agenda, and they don't always tell you what their agenda is. So you might have half the story.
Yeah.
And so you're arguing with them. I'm doing air quotation marks, you're arguing with them about why the project is going to be delayed 2 months, because the reason to you makes perfect sense, and they are not happy because they didn't tell you that the project can't be delayed 2 months because, I don't know, the CEO is coming in to assess everything, whatever the case may be. But, you've got to be thick-skinned because things are going to go pear-shaped and you're going to get in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like in cyber in general, like we find that our hospo skills definitely helped us transition quite well. And I think, again, mentioning the gender gap, and I think you mentioned, how some guy made that prank on you.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that will
that's
build these
crazy.
skills up.
That'll make you resilient.
It's a bit resilience.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's your risk management as well. It's just like it was tethered. It was risk management, a bit of resilience.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
they're
right.
not.
Absolutely. And just the fact that so many people come from different areas.
Yeah.
So managing properties, and while doing a degree in psychology as well, which is talk about psychology, and it can be very tough sometimes to study these things and to go deep into the human psyche and everything. And we feel sometimes that we have, I don't want to speak for you anyway, but I feel sometimes the only issue, one of the issues I had with PMs and things like that is they're very condescending towards me.
Yeah.
They just assume that I don't know.
Is that because you're a female?
That's what I'm kind of implying here.
Yeah.
Very subtle.
I'm not known for subtlety, sorry.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's okay, neither are we.
Yeah. I think it's also my I guess presented gender and also my age as well that might be assumed in that way. Like somebody might swear in a meeting or something like that.
Yes.
And they will like apologize to us. I had like a separate call to me, like, I'm so sorry about those guys. And I'm like, yeah, I've actually been in the army. I've actually like...
I've actually heard these words before.
Yeah, you're like, this might come as a shock, but I actually use these words too.
Yeah, frequently. I worked the night shift in Crown during the state of origin.
Yeah.
Also, the fact you worked in Crown,
Yeah.
seen enough.
It's okay, actually.
And I've two thoughts. Part of me thinks that was really nice to apologise, and the other half goes, why?
Yeah.
Are you apologising to everyone?
Yeah.
Or just me?
Just me.
Yeah,
Because
why
I'm
are you
friends?
only
Yeah.
apologising to me?
Yeah. So, yeah. But to be honest, though, they can't win. So, part of me goes, yeah, that's really nice. But you're right. I also think it's also a me thing. I often have imposter syndrome. So I often think, if they look at me and think I can't do a job, is that what they think because I'm not doing a good job, or is that just me because they're an idiot?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You start questioning yourself and your own
questioning-
ability.
Yeah.
So it's like it's a bit of a circle, but I have seen that before with guys treating female subject matter experts a little differently than what they treat somebody who sits next to them, and males.
I had one of my old bosses. So we were organising a venue for the Purple Team Australia thing, and we went and spoke to the venue about things, and I had to have a bit of a phone conversation with the venue guy, and my boss was there, and afterwards he's like, "Oh, Bianca, you're terrifyingly competent," and I was like,
What?
Wow.
And I was like,
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know if that's a compliment, a backhand compliment,
A backhand
or
compliment?
are you
Yeah.
surprised that I'm competent to do
Full
my
stop.
job?
Or he's scared of you. And
Yeah.
Is it a good thing? Or
Yeah, I
is
know.
it-
I was like, I don't know which. I think he meant it as a compliment.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was like, does it surprise you that I'm competent?
Yeah.
And also, would you have said that to a
a
male?
guy? No,
Yeah.
probably not.
I
Probably
think
not.
that's the thing. It's like, would you
Yeah.
have said that to someone else?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. And anyway, I know you know this, like with that Purple Team Australia thing, a comment was made to some of the female students
Yes.
in how to do job interviews. And I think it was along the
How
line.
do you do a job interview as a
This
female
is probably
student?
going off on a bit of a tangent.
No, that's
now.
awesome. That's great. Yeah.
But this
But
is pretty
it was-
messed up.
It was along the lines of, just,
if you
I think-
smile more.
yeah, I think she said, what should I do? I'm really excited about the job interview because this person was setting up an interview for her. And they were like, just do what you're doing now, just smile and look pretty or something.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was
I don't know if it's a
exactly-
pretty comment, but it definitely
was about smiling.
told to smile more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know we had a conversation about it. And
Yeah.
Was this a guy that said that or another
Yeah.
woman?
Yeah.
No,
it was
it
a
was a
man.
guy.
And this was someone who is meant to be helping these women, and these are people looking to transition into cyber, right? So
Yeah.
they don't currently work in the
Wow.
industry.
Yeah, that's right.
Some of them were quite young too.
Very- yeah,
so some of them were a
really
bit
young.
older and had been in the workforce for a while, but
Yeah.
some of them were like straight out of high school.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's shit. So I used to mentor people back in New Zealand. That's something that you should never say. You should run through a scenario and go, here's some interview questions. How would you answer that? And then
Yeah.
address them as you go.
You
It's
know.
not. It's not that.
Yeah,
hard.
and it's just like saying, as a woman, you don't look friendly unless you smile,
Mhm.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because I think quite often we're taught to smile to try and ease a situation,
Yeah.
but it's not our responsibility to make
I've
women
learned.
feel comfortable.
I've learned in the project management space. If I smile while I'm saying the word "fuck," I can get away with almost anything.
It's all about the context, right?
To know when to smile is extremely important.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
Read the
absolutely.
word.
Yes.
And obviously, it's not that
Yeah.
you shouldn't smile in
Yeah.
your job interview. Obviously, you
No.
don't want to come across as someone who looks very unfriendly.
Stiff,
Yeah.
yeah.
But it's also, it's like, why was that the first thing he said to say
Yeah.
to do in a job interview? And
That's
also, I'm like,
right.
would he said that to a man? I doubt
No,
it.
they wouldn't.
No,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
there's definitely a different level of judgment.
And you've got
I think it's getting better.
And you've got to wonder whether or not, and there's not an excuse, but now I'm curious. There's a curious thing. Whether he said that to her because she was young, whether he would have said that to somebody, a female who was.
She was an elder mother, I believe. She
Oh.
was an older woman. A mother.
Okay, no, so it's just a him.
Okay, I'm getting angry.
Tapping.
I'm getting angry now. This is obviously not.
Yeah.
This was not meant in a in a professional kind of helpful way.
I don't think so.
No.
Yeah, because
I mean, look, there were other things, issues going on as well, so we won't go into that. But
No,
let's just say it wasn't very helpful.
No.
No.
It was a great program, though. We'll leave that.
Yeah.
I think the
So one
students
glitch
in the end got a lot out of it.
Yeah.
A
But
glitch
it's
in the
a-
matrix
sorry.
doesn't make the whole thing awful, but
No,
it does.
that's right.
It's interesting that that's what you remember,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which means it affected
Yeah.
your way of thinking and possibly hers as well.
And do you know what? Like coming back to the PM piece, because I was essentially the project manager on that. At the end, I had to have those difficult conversations because these were brought to me as complaints as well.
Oh,
So I had to have those difficult conversations as well.
And it's so awesome because we talk on our podcast about calling this out, and you
Yeah.
actually get to do that as you
Yeah,
you get to
yeah.
be paid for that,
Yeah.
to call out these certain things because they are a risk to a certain. Like for instance,
yeah,
a
that's
guy
right.
like this addressing women like this.
Yeah.
It's a risk for women potentially not coming back to this program or something like that.
Yeah.
Reputation, everything, financial loss and all of that. You can definitely put it into a risk matrix and say, well, this is a problem.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
right.
personalities. And to extend on that, if you've got a really good team that treasure that and look after that team because they are going to help you look good.
Yeah.
All it takes is for one person in that team to be moody, unpredictable, a diva, a complete arrogant ass.
Yeah.
And instead of the whole team lifting that person up and changing their view, that person seems to bring the whole team down.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it happens. So, yes, treasure the team. That is a really good team that works together well.
Yeah.
Fix immediately the person or the two people or something that don't get on, or try and fix that immediately. Don't let that fester because it never fixes itself.
And you know what? Sometimes you can't get those people to get along. So you have to shift.
Yeah,
you have to shift.
Separate them, give them work,
Yeah.
figure out a way around it. But
Yeah.
don't let that fester because it will take your whole team down
Yeah.
and yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very complex.
Yeah, and I think, we could probably talk about this all day, but
I
I
know.
think that's actually a good place to leave it.
Yeah.
Because I think we've touched on a lot of great topics in different areas. So, yeah, thank you so much, Bianca and Kathy, for joining us today on the podcast.
Well, it's fun. Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Thank you. It's been interesting. My first podcast on anything.
Mine
so
too.
thank you very much.
Yeah. That's
Cool.
good. Thank you.
All right, thanks for tuning in again to this episode of Lost in Cyberia.
And we will catch you next time.
Bye.
But thank you so much. Oh my god, yeah.
That was way less.
We spoke for an hour and 5 minutes.